Abu Talib, passed away one after another. The Prophet seemed completely alone. No one in Makkah was listening to him anymore. He thought the Muslims might need to seek refuge in another city. He considered Taif. He set out with his adopted son, Zayd. Taif was a beautiful city about 100 kilometers southeast of Makkah, with vineyards and gardens. He went to the leaders of Taif. He explained Islam. He asked for support. They rejected him. Not only did they reject him, they expelled him from the city. Worse than that, they encouraged street children and reckless youths to attack him. They stoned the Prophet ﷺ. Zayd tried to protect him, using his own body as a shield, but the stones kept coming. The Prophet's feet were bleeding. His head was injured. Weak and losing blood, he left Taif. While shedding tears, he rested in a garden and tended to his wounds. At that moment, Jibril came and said, "O Muhammad, if you wish, we can crush this city between two mountains." The Prophet replied, "No. Perhaps from their descendants there will be people who believe in Allah." Mercy. Prophethood was not revenge. It was mercy, not anger, but compassion. After tending his wounds on the road, he returned to Makkah. And then, one night, that great journey took place, because the darkest moment is the closest to dawn. That night, Allah took his messenger on a journey beyond the heavens. When he returned, his spirit was much stronger. Meanwhile, the mushrik of Makkah realized that the embargo had not reduced the number of Muslims. Even some mushrik with conscience began to question the boycott. The cries of hungry Muslim children echoing through the streets of Makkah touched their hearts. These people spoke with other influential figures. Eventually, among the crowd gathered near the Kaaba, those who argued that the boycott must end became many. Even many non-Muslim people of Makkah no longer wanted to watch their own relatives die from hunger. And finally, the boycott was lifted. Even after the boycott ended, pressure against Muslims continued in Makkah. Makkah had become an unlivable place for Muslims. But now, there was a new hope: Medina. During the pilgrimage seasons, the Prophet spoke about Islam to tribes coming from outside. A group from the city of Yathrib, later Medina, came. They listened. They believed. Then they returned. The next year, they came in greater numbers. At Aqaba, secretly at night, they met the Prophet. They gave their pledge. They said, "We will protect you as we protect our own families." The Prophet understood. Medina was ready. The time for Hijrah had come. Muslims began to migrate quietly. The year was 622. First, the family of Abu Bakr, then others. In small groups, without drawing attention, the mushriks of Makkah noticed. They gathered in anger. "If Muhammad leaves," they said, "Islam will spread much more strongly and will become impossible to control." Abu Jahl said, "We must kill him." But how? If one tribe kills him, Banu Hashim will take revenge. A clever plan was made. One young man from each tribe. All would strike together. In this way, the blood would be shared by all tribes, and no blood revenge could be taken. But a great miracle would happen. As he passed among them, none of them would see him. The journey to Medina would be risky and dangerous, because the mushriks of Makkah were chasing them. Yet another miracle would take place, and again, Allah would protect his Prophet. Medina was not just a migration, it was a turning point. In Medina, there was excitement. Muslims went out to the roads every day asking, "Is Rasulullah coming?" And one day, he appeared, riding his camel Qaswa, with his white turban shining under the sun. Children filled the streets and sang, "Tala al-Badru alayna." The full moon has risen over us. Everyone wanted to host the Prophet in their home, but the Prophet did not want to hurt anyone. He said, "Leave the camel, let her go. Where she kneels, we will buy that land and build." The camel knelt. That place is where Masjid an-Nabawi stands today. It was a date-drying area owned by two orphan boys. The land was bought. and the building of both a mosque and a home began. The Prophet himself carried stones. They built it together. Here, the foundation of the first Islamic mosque and the first Islamic state center was laid. With the Hijrah, the calendar began. A state was established. Belief met society. From this moment on, Islam was no longer only a call. It became a system. The Prophet had the Medina Charter written, known as one of the first written constitutions in history. Muslims, Jews, and mushriks were all included. It was a document that defined the rights and responsibilities of everyone. We will live together. We will respect each other's religions. If an external attack comes, we will defend together. We will not turn away from justice. The second major step was the brotherhood between the Muhajirun, those who came from Makkah, and the Ansar, the Muslims of Medina. This was real brotherhood. The Ansar shared their homes, their wealth, and their gardens. They gave the Muhajirun homes, work, and support. In this way, integration into society happened very quickly. An integration that even the most developed Western societies struggle to achieve today was accomplished in a very short time. People who, not long before, had buried their daughters alive, now found ways to live together with people of very different beliefs and backgrounds. They showed humanity how it could be done. While there was peace in Medina, Makkah did not remain still. The year was 624. The army of Makkah set out to crush this new force while it was still growing. Under the command of Abu Jahl, they were about 1,000 men with 700 camels and 100 horses, fully equipped, armor, swords, spears. They met near the wells of Badr. The numbers were frightening, 313 against 1,000. One Muslim would face 3 enemies, but there was a difference. One army was filled with faith. The Prophet made supplication, "O Allah, send the help you promised. If this group is destroyed today, there will be no one left on earth who worships you." That night, rain fell. The Muslim side became slightly wet, the dust settled, and the ground became firm. The side of the mushriks turned into mud. In the morning, the battle began. Some of the mushriks later said they saw angels that day, warriors on white horses with green turbans. Fear took hold of them, and the battle ended with a clear victory for the Muslims. Abu Jahl, the greatest enemy of Islam, was lying on the ground. The first major victory, but it was only the beginning. The year 625 came. The people of Makkah gathered a larger army for revenge, 3,000 soldiers. The Prophet wanted to defend Medina, but the younger companions wanted an open battle outside the city. The Prophet accepted. He went to Mount Uhud with 1,000 Muslims. On the way, the hypocrite Abdullah ibn Ubay turned back with 300 men. Only 700 Muslims remained, facing 3,000 mushriks. The Prophet made a strategic plan. He placed 50 archers at a narrow pass on the mountain and said, "Do not leave this position. Whether we win or lose, do not leave." The battle began. The Muslims gained the upper hand. The mushriks began to flee. Then, the feared mistake happened. The archers thought, "We are winning," and they left their position. The mushrik commander Khalid ibn Walid, not yet Muslim at that time, saw the opportunity. He moved around from behind and attacked the Muslims from the rear. Panic began. The Muslims were confused. They were caught between two sides. The Prophet became a target. Arrows fell. One struck his face. His tooth was broken. His face began to bleed. A stone hit his head. His helmet pressed into his head. He fell. "The Muhammad is dead!" the mushriks shouted. The companions scattered in panic. Some ran away. Some sat down and cried. Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet, and many Muslims were martyred. The battle ended. 70 Muslims were martyred. The Prophet himself was wounded. But the people of Makkah did not dare to enter the city. They withdrew. When the Prophet saw the body of Hamza, he cried and said, "I will never see an uncle like you again." Uhud became a lesson. Obedience, discipline, strategy, patience, the Muslims learned. The year 627 came. This time, the people of Makkah came with allies. The Ghatafan tribe, Banu Sulaim, and others joined them. A massive army of 10,000 men. In Medina, there were only 3,000 Muslims. How would they defend the city? Salman al-Farisi, a man from Persia, made a suggestion. Let us dig a trench, a deep channel around the city. This is how the Persians defend themselves. The Prophet accepted. With everyone working together, including the Prophet himself, the trench was completed. The mushriks arrived. They were shocked. The siege began, but they could not cross. They shot arrows, but the trench could not be passed. One night a violent storm came. The tents of the mushriks were blown away. Their fires were extinguished. Abu Sufyan said, "O Quraysh, this place is no longer good for us. Our animals are dying. Qurayza has abandoned us, and the storm is harming us. We are leaving." The army scattered. Islam had won with intelligence, a strategic victory. The year was 628. The Prophet saw a dream and gathered the Muslims to perform Umrah. He set out with 1,400 people. They were unarmed, only for Umrah. Swords stayed in their sheaths. There was no intention of war, because in that time Arabs considered fighting during the sacred months forbidden. The people of Makkah stopped the Muslims at a place called Hudaybiyah, about 20 kilometers from Makkah. After negotiations, the terms of an agreement were written. The terms were, Umrah would not be performed this year. It would be performed the next year. There would be no war for 10 years. Any Muslim who escaped from Makkah to Medina would be returned. But anyone who escaped from Medina to Makkah would not be returned. Tribes could choose either side freely. The Muslims were angry. "This is not an agreement. This is surrender," they said. But the Prophet signed it and said, "Allah will open a way." And he did. That agreement became one of the greatest victories of Islam. The Quran called it a clear victory. Why? Because within 2 years, even before the 10 years ended, Islam spread through peace. People began to speak freely. Muslims who were returned to Makkah did not disappear. They lived in the countryside around Makkah and became a pressure point, spreading Islam and weakening Quraysh control. The terms looked bad on the surface, but the results were great success. Once again, Allah and His Messenger won, even though some Muslims had sincere doubts at the time. By the year 630, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ stood at the gates of the city he had once left in secret, now with an army of 10,000 people. But this was not a march of revenge. The conquest of Makkah was achieved without bloodshed. It was an epic of forgiveness. As the idols in the Kaaba were destroyed one by one, the cry, "Truth has come," echoed through the sky. At this stage, Islam was still limited in geography, but its foundations were firmly laid. The Arabian Peninsula, Makkah and Medina became fully Muslim. Arab tribes such as Awaz, Khazraj, Ghatafan, Asad, and Tamim gave their pledge. In 628, the governor of Yemen, Badhan, became Muslim. Southern Arabia opened to Islam. In 629, Bahrain became Muslim. Islam spread in eastern Arabia. In Oman, the Julanda brothers, the rulers of Oman, accepted Islam. In Ethiopia, Muslims had been present since 615. The Najashi, the king, became Muslim, but the people remained Christian for a time and later accepted Islam. Black African Muslims also began to increase. Islam started spreading from mouth to mouth. In 629, the Battle of Mu'tah took place. For the first time, Muslims faced the Byzantine army. 3,000 Muslims against 200,000 Byzantine and Arab Christian allies. Khalid ibn Walid, now Muslim, saved the army with brilliant strategy and forced Byzantium to retreat. After Hudaybiyah, the Prophet made a historic decision. He sent letters to world leaders, inviting them to Islam. He sent letters to the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius, the Persian ruler Khosrow, and the ruler of Egypt, Muqawqis. These letters were not only invitations, they were declarations. A new power is rising.